Thank you. Ms. Maczka, you will respond first on the next question. As a general rule, most believe we need less government. How does Richardson fare? Too big or too small?
Well, I can tell you beyond a shadow of a doubt that our government today is smaller than it was even 10 years ago. You know, the city of Richardson takes this very seriously. When we experienced the first financial downturn in the community with the telecom corridor bust, you know, the city took the hard steps then. They froze positions. So I can tell you unequivocally that our city staff and our city government is leaner and smaller than it was back then. Now, I'm the first one to say you can always try to be more efficient, but I also think that Richardson residents demand a high quality of service, and that is what the city is there to provide. So I think that as we're moving forward, what we've got to continually evaluate is the services that we are providing our residents and the cost and the staffing required to do that. Because our citizens demand quality services, and so in order to do that, you're going to have some people actually providing those services. But I do believe that overall we are lean, and I believe that we've got an outstanding city staff who take this job very seriously, who go above and beyond the call of duty on a daily basis, and who are doing more work today than they were back when they had more people on staff.
I agree that we're just about right, but here's what I will add to that. I would add that the reason for a top-to-bottom review is to determine whether or not there are even leaner ways that we can accomplish the same task. By looking for best practices, by doing things like benchmarking against other cities, looking at what another amazing parks department might be doing in another city, maybe in another part of the country, and determining whether or not they have figured out how to solve the problem with less people or spending less city money, those are practices that we ought to look at. Now, as a person who has been in the elected position now for 4 years, I haven't just thought about the idea of how can we do more with less. I've actually been a leader in it. You look at programs that I've championed and that the entire council has approved that I took the lead on. Look at Tree the Town. Tree the Town provided trees that we would have had to pay for up front, and instead found a way to get corporations and nonprofits to help us execute those plantings. Now, my opponent a few times now has taken a jab at this particular program about how much it costs after the fact, and she claims that I said it was a free program. It's never been a free program. What it has been is it's been a program that was designed to actually bring trees in and beautify our city without us having to pay for them up front. Look at McKinney, look at Plano. Beautiful medians, but they bought those trees. We figured out how to solve it better in Richardson. We took a community garden program, and what we did is instead of doing it like every other city and buying a plot of land and trying to create it ourselves, I reached out to faith-based organizations, and we solved the problem almost overnight, bigger, better, and far less expensive than other cities anywhere in the Metroplex. That's the kind of leader I'm going to be, finding a way to provide those sorts of amenities and improvements to our city without it necessarily having to be a bigger government.
So I think, Mr. Omar, that you would have a number of peers on council who would disagree with your statement. I happened to be on the Parks Commission when the Tree the Town program came up, and it was, in fact, billed as a free program for the community. It's a wonderful program, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't do it. I just think it's another example of where there was never a discussion of how much this would cost the citizens. $100,000 is what we're in hard costs, plus the watering. But I think it's also a perfect example of what I'm talking about, an additional burden on the staff. The park staff who were charged with implementing this program, 30% of one of those people was pulled off of what they were doing. 30% of her time was dedicated to Tree the Town. Again, this is putting additional strain on an already strained staff. And again, I think it's the example of what I'm talking about. It's throw an idea out there because it sounds great, but not fully vetting it out and not really thinking about both the short-term and long-term implications of that idea.
It's a little bit of revisionist history. As a matter of fact, Tree the Town, the community garden program, any idea that any council person brings forward is fully vetted by staff. It always is, and this one was as well. It was presented by staff because they had vetted it. They had gotten to the point where they were very comfortable with what all the costs associated with it were. And the fact is that Tree the Town, the way that we've designed it, will actually help save. If you were to try and do it the old big government way and plant every tree by the city and pay for it by the city, it would be a $31 million upfront cost that in our case, because we're finding sponsorships and because we're doing it with a nonprofit, it doesn't cost us anything up front. Now, the fact is that the staff is excellent. I think Laura would agree with that. And our council members ask good questions, and I think Laura would agree with that. We asked those questions that night. We got the answers. There were no tricks, and the staff was smart enough to be able to reveal to us exactly what those costs were. But because it's political season, it's time to go against something that we were previously for.